Welcome to bringing positive effects into your life. And tonight, that's what we sure hope to do. I'm excited about this show tonight because I have my good friend Chris Adshade here. And we're going to be talking about hypnosis. And we're going to be talking about the marvelous things that you can do with hypnosis. Chris.
Well, thank you for having me tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm excited. I really wanted to have you on the show, and it's great to have you here.
Oh, well, I appreciate it.
Good. Chris, would you tell our viewing audience a little bit about what you do?
Well, I am a certified hypnotherapist and also an NLP practitioner. For those of you who do not know what NLP is, it's neuro-linguistic programming. And I have worked in both fields for over 15 years, kind of pushing the 20.
Wow, getting old there.
I tell you, I feel it. But it's all good. I love
good.
what I do, and I love to see the changes that people make in their lives, either personally or professionally.
Oh, awesome. Now, how did you get into this?
Well, I kind of fell into it. I think the first time I was exposed to hypnosis was when I was in high school. And they had a hypnotist come in for the psychology class and basically kind of did a hypnosis session. And, you know, I was kind of skeptical. And I remember the hypnotist saying, you know, your hands are on the table. Remember, school desks, you know.
Right.
Your hands are on the table, and they get so relaxed and so heavy that you feel like they can't even move. And I remember trying to pick it up, and I really couldn't pick it up. And I'm thinking, whoa. And then he said our eyes would actually be so heavy you couldn't open them up. And I remember doing this.
That is
Eyelids
awesome.
didn't open, but the eyebrows were going up. And after that point, I just said, wow, this is really cool. I need to know how to do this. And really had forgotten all about it until after I went off to college to become a social worker. And I just happened to be down in New Jersey, Rutgers University. I didn't actually go there, but I was there doing a paper. And I ran into somebody working in the library who was helping me, and general conversation, and I asked what his major was. Well, it was a master's in social work with a minor in hypnotherapy. I was just like, whoa, you know? So him and I got talking, and I basically got to know him, his fiance, and I would actually spend weekends at that university in the dorm room and poring over all his hypnosis books. And that's kind of how I got into the field of hypnosis. And then after graduating and moving back up to this area here, started working in social work, and I happened to run into a woman who was a hypnotherapist who worked for the agency that I worked for.
It just keeps on coming back to you.
So you know what? It keep popping up, and she actually connected me with an organization in Florida who I originally trained with. Like I said, almost 20 years ago.
That is an incredible story, and it's all over the place too.
You know what? It's getting
you're out
to
of
be
college,
so
you're at another
popular,
college.
you know, all around, because people are trying to find ways of helping themselves. And now with, you know, different modalities, personal growth, integrative medicine, the whole field of hypnosis is opening up, whereas before it used to be, you know, considered like, oh no, what's that hypnosis?
Yeah.
You know, big H word, you know?
Oh, I know. And you know, my show is around helping our audience have things that they can do themselves. And I'm hoping that our audience is starting to get a little okay with hypnosis, the big H word, of course. So there's a lot of thrilling things you can do in hypnosis. What kind of things have you been doing now that you've been a practitioner for 20 years? What kind of things have you been doing? What exciting stuff do you do?
Well, it's always changing. When you think of hypnosis, the top things that people think of is smoking, weight loss, and stress. Those are the three top biggies. But really, after that, you can have hypnobirthing, which is painless childbirth, stage hypnosis, which is more the fun side of hypnosis.
Yeah.
You know, and usually find those all around. But really now, boosting the immune system, improving your golf game, and
That
public
is
speaking
cool.
too. So there's so many things you can do with it.
Yeah, that's great. How about you personally? What have you been specializing in?
One of the areas that I really enjoy is working with people who struggle with their weight. And I've worked in that area for a number of years now, and I just have a passion in that area because it's great to see people who've struggled for so long and then all of a sudden start seeing changes, and then just realizing that they can do it.
That's amazing, and it's so wonderful to help someone like that. It's just so great. So how do you go about helping somebody with weight loss?
Well, it's a whole process. It's really, one of the main things is changing their mindset as far as how they view the whole weight issue. Because people who've struggled with their weight for a long period of time, maybe their whole life, have had so much negative feedback, where they've tried this thing, that diet, and everything, and it's just negative feedback again and again and again, which, as you know, is almost like being hypnotized.
Exactly. Exactly. It's we run into this all the time as hypnotists, and I always say, whatever they talk about a self-fulfilling prophecy, it is exactly that when you start talking negative to yourself. Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting because I used to actually work not too far from the studio here.
Really?
Yep, and I worked actually in the field of corrections, and it was interesting because...
Hold on, you corrected people?
Well, no, working in the corrections field, the prison system.
Oh, the prison system.
Sorry about
okay,
that.
I thought you were working in the school system correcting...
rattling right along here. Well, it was interesting because the nurses in the infirmary would help me out with certain cases that I had. And as a thank you, I would bring in donuts.
Awesome.
Well, I had one nurse who used to constantly say, why don't you just hang them or staple them to my hips, because that's exactly where they're going to go. And it's funny because so many people think that, and they joke about it, but with how your mind works, if you say it enough, and you say it convincingly and repeatedly, that's basically some of the techniques that we use in hypnosis to speak to the subconscious mind. Well, guess what they're doing? They're speaking to their subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind listens to you and many times follows with what you really want or what it thinks you really want. So if you're saying, why don't you just staple them to my hips? Well, when you eat it, where do you think the subconscious mind might be sending those donuts?
That's right.
Right
down
to
to the hips. Yep.
So it's a lot of it is just your mind frame. We hear the whole idea of diet, and a long time ago, the word diet basically meant curtailing your eating habits. Hopefully for the good, but somewhere along the way, somebody realized that, wow, I can make money off this. And next thing you know, the diet industry is this billion-dollar industry, and there's always something new coming up. Nothing against the diet industry, but it just seems like there's always something new, and everybody kind of jumps on the bandwagon. And then, unfortunately, they find that they might have lost a little weight, but it really didn't work out.
And nowadays, people have, when they hear the word diet, they have this, this preconceived thing about the fact that a diet is, first of all, a short time, and it's something you are going to probably suffer at. So that can't be healthy to just say, okay, I'm going to go on the diet.
Yep. Well, if you think about it, think of like maybe your work environment, people who have lunch together. They're constantly comparing, oh, what are you having over there? Oh, yeah. And everybody's, talking about, what they're eating and the diet that they're on and what worked, what didn't work. So really, the word diet, even though it was supposed to mean curtailing your eating habits, really now has become a negative word because it brings up all that negative feedback and also failures that people have experienced along. So that's usually one word that I tell people you need to get rid of your vocabulary. Don't use the word diet because it is a 4-letter word.
Yes.
So use the words curtailing your eating habits, and that could be anything from, perhaps instead of having seconds, not having seconds for your meal, or if you are, maybe just vegetables. It could be just something small,
Yeah.
and it just kind of, puts you on the path to a positive way of reducing your weight.
Right, and I like the word diet because also when people think about diets, they think about what they can't have. It's all about what, and it sounds to me like curtailing eating habits doesn't say anything about what you can't have. So that's a wonderful mindset to get into.
Yeah, when I'm working with people, I usually do a whole assessment, and I ask, what they want to do. And a lot of times, if they're trying to say they're trying to cut out this certain thing or that certain thing, I usually tell them that, you're really kind of setting up this loop system in our minds. Because usually what happens if you say, I can't have this certain thing, okay, whether it's the brownie or, the candy or even the soda, anything, whatever it is, you might say, yep, that's going to be my goal, I'm not going to do it. And then suddenly you're thinking about it. Well, that thought turns into an urge, that turns into a craving. Well, what happens after a certain short period of time? That craving basically, you kind of give in and you say, oh, the heck with it. Yeah. And you end up having that thing. Well, unfortunately, with how your mind works, is it's felt like it's been deprived that whole time. So even though you're going to have that thing, it wants to make up for lost time. And you end up overindulging in that thing that you just might have wanted for a short period of time.
Wow. So all those things actually work against us.
Yep.
That's amazing.
And with hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, it's really changing the mindset. Okay? I usually tell people, you're actually going to become friends with your food. And people either think food is the enemy because it's, done something physically to them,
Yes.
gaining the weight, or some people turn around and say, oh, I'm very friendly with my food. And unfortunately,
Some
that's
people are
had
too
the same
friendly with the
results
food.
too,
Yes.
But it's really changing that mindset that, not cutting out something, but actually having a small, healthy portion of it.
Okay.
It goes back to moderation.
Yep. Moderation. Now, I also find when people are on the so-called diets, when they fall off the wagon, they beat themselves out terribly, and that actually usually ends up with them feeling so bad they want to feel good and they eat more. How does hypnosis help you so that if you so-called fall off the wagon or if you don't curtail right, that you don't beat yourself up?
Well, with hypnosis, you can actually do a hypnosis session to change your viewpoint. But also in neurolinguistic programming, you can do what we call, and you know this very well, reframing.
Right.
And a lot of times, when I'm working with somebody individually or in a group or a classroom setting, there might be one person who maybe didn't do as well as they wanted to during the week. Whether somebody at work, kind of brought in the brownies and they kind of found themselves overindulging. Human nature, we tend to either throw in the towel or we kind of, end up being negative on ourselves. So a lot of times it's usually trying to reframe the person to say, well, you know what? You did really good, all week, except for maybe Thursday. you know, and Thursday and Friday, but on Saturday you kind of caught yourself, okay, hopefully caught yourself, and started curtailing your eating habits in a healthier way. But people don't focus on the fact that they did all this positive stuff during the week to focus on their health.
Right.
They focus on that one thing that's negative. So it's really kind of changed their mindset to say, even people who might not have, you know, reduced their weight during the week, I usually say to them, but did you gain weight? And many times they'll say no. And I say, well, you know what? You want to jump on the negative part of saying, well, I didn't lose weight that week, but you didn't gain. So that's a win.
Yes. It's a whole new mindset then, right? That is just awesome. Now, I'm hoping that you can give our viewing audience some tips that they can use. You know, short of hypnosis, of course, but there are some ways to start reframing and looking at things that I'm hoping that you can give them a few tips that they can use right away.
Okay.
Is there a few things?
Well, it would actually be nice to hypnotize people now, but we don't want people at home going into hypnosis and withering away.
Yep, I see that.
But some practical techniques that I will let people know that I work with individuals and groups.
Okay.
Number one, change your vocabulary. Like I said, get rid of that diet word. The next one is, instead of saying lose weight, okay, because when you lose something, your mind panics. Like you think of losing your keys, your credit card, you panic, and your mind says, oh, we got to find it. Well, it does the same thing with, you know, food or weight. We want to lose, you know, and your mind says, oh, well, we got to find it. Well, unfortunately, it finds the weight that it might have lost, and usually finds it and its friends. So that's a big thing. The other thing is, usually when you think of, you know, weight, I usually tell people instead of weight loss, I tell them there's 3 positive words you can use. Okay, instead of weight loss and that loss, think of it as weight reduction. Because most people, if you ask them, would you like to reduce your weight, you know, whether it's 1 pound, 5 pounds, 20, 40, et cetera, you know, you're not putting a number on it that like, oh, I've got to reach that point, okay? Right. The next one is weight release.
Weight release,
because you're actually giving yourself permission, okay? Because sometimes your mind will actually hold on to the weight for various reasons.
Right.
And that usually takes a little bit of therapy to kind of find out why that's happening. But weight release, you're giving yourself permission to release the weight.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And then the third one, which I just heard probably about 4 months ago, was Dr. Matt James, who is a pioneer in the field of neurolinguistic program, who I know is a good friend of yours. And you were in a training, the same training I was in just recently. And his words that he uses instead of weight loss is to take that weight and donate it.
Weight donation.
And I love that. The minute I heard him say that, I said, donating the weight. And I'm thinking, you know what? Because people usually, if you think about donating, you know, people want to give.
Right.
And usually people want to be generous. Well, why not do something with what you have extra of?
Yes.
Okay, because if you think of donating, you know, like financially, sometimes you can't because of financial restraints. But if you have extra weight, why not donate?
Donate it.
So that's
I
a nice
love
one that
yes.
Your good friend
Yes.
happened to mention, and I heard that, and I'm like, ooh, gotta write that down. Hopefully it's not copyrighted.
You're always good at picking those up. Yeah. So the 3 things again, and this is all changing language, and just by changing the language, we can start to change our mindset.
It starts changing your mind, because you know what? All the diets that come down, you know, the road, the new ones and everything, they always want to take this way or limit this. But you know what? It all starts in your mind. If you don't change your relationship with your food, yourself, internally, and also physically, then you're not going to see a lot of results. And the other one, which I always tell people, is water is your friend.
Water is your
water
friend.
is your friend. And I tell people, if you think about it, most doctors tell you to drink 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. If you think of a glass as being 1 cup, that's roughly between 60 and 80 ounces a day. It seems like a lot, but
That's
if you think about
that's
it,
a lot.
so, but again, you should always check with your doctor first, because there are medications that could be flushed out with water, and you don't want to interfere with
Right,
that. So the number
right.
one thing is check with your doctor and really see what they have to say before you start any kind of diet or curtailing your eating
Curtailing
habits.
your eating habits, yes. Even just curtailing, you should be checking with your doctor. So we have a change of language, and that starts a change of mindset. And when you start that, it starts changing your habits, doesn't it?
It does. And the important thing is not to jump on the negative bandwagon. And what I usually tell people is, make a goal that is small and attainable, fairly easy. And once you attain it for a period of time,
Right.
you bump it up a notch, okay? So that if you hit a little bump in the road, you don't throw in the towel. And you just kind of keep going. And that's
Right.
the important thing, is build on small successes, and those small successes lead to even greater ones.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the word weight, just, people...
It's a heavy word,
It is, and unfortunately it carries, again, a lot of negative
Connotations, yeah.
connotations and feedback. So I tell people, if you're used to stepping on the scale all the time, because remember, the scale's not your friend, because it just gives you a number. And
Right.
that, again, that's negative feedback. So take that word weight, okay, and don't focus on the weight. Focus on your health and wellness. And guess what? Your weight will fall into place.
That is awesome. Those are some great tips for our viewing audience. And I hope you're enjoying this. This is really, really nice, and you want to definitely take notes of everything that Chris has said tonight. So our habits, our language changes, our mindset then changes, our habits then start to change. And we're no longer focusing on the weight loss. We're no longer focusing on what we don't want to eat. We're no longer focusing on the sacrifice we're going to make. We're now focusing on all the positive things. We're releasing or even donating our weight. Yes. And the water is our friend. And we start to eat the right things just naturally, and we're not dieting, we're just curtailing. We're just pulling back a little. And the one thing I noticed is when you said small things, a lot of people look at their weight and they say, oh, I got to lose 20 pounds, I got to lose 30, 40 pounds, and it's just so large.
It just seems like it's way out there, and you may never attain it.
Yeah, so you start your clients off with just focusing on the little successes, huh?
And usually keeping a journal, because then when you might not be having such a successful day, you can go back and read. And I usually tell people, not to write down all their foods of what they ate and stuff, because then it gets to be a chore or burden,
Right.
but to pick out at least 3 positive things that they notice throughout the day. And it could be as simple as, parking a little further away from the front door at work.
Right.
Maybe taking the elevator up to the 2nd floor instead of taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Are you increasing your heart rate like most people will tell you? No, but it's more activity than what you did probably the last 3 days in a row.
Yeah. I used to try to stay focused on movement instead of being sedentary. Excuse me, audience. I don't know how to pronounce that right word. I have always getting it sedentary. Instead of being that, instead of being sitting still all the time, just the little movements help, right? And even if they got a desk job, just get up once in a while, maybe get up and talk while you're on the phone or something like that. Even little things like that, you can mark in this journal and you go back and you see all your successes. That's wonderful.
I tell people at work, if you're busy working, you know what? You deserve a break. So, take a break, maybe head down to use the restrooms and back. At least you've gotten a break from work, a little relief from the stress, and you've actually increased your movement a little bit.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I love the idea of journaling. Like you said, I always thought that journaling was a very great way to succeed in almost anything. It's a way to track, and it's a way to actually write your positive responses, your little successes, and everything about what you need. And it's just a wonderful thing. I love the idea of journaling. And your clients, they like doing that? Do they find it helpful?
Most people, once they start it.
Once they start.
Getting started, they're not used to doing it. So I usually tell people, put a little notepad next to your bed so that before you go to bed, you can, think about, what little things that you've seen change throughout the day. And I really, to look for that, whether great or small. People usually want to see these big changes, but you know what? It's the little changes that are important too. It could be, if you've got that snack cabinet,
right?
moving the snacks to maybe the top shelf, okay? Because, and this is where a lot of times the hypnosis comes in, it kind of turns on that internal monitor that reminds you, or that little voice on your shoulder saying, do you really want that? Does it work toward your goals? So when you, might be finding yourself reaching up to that third shelf for that snack, suddenly, you hear that little voice saying, does that work toward your goal? And then people have time to make that conscious decision. Either, no, I'm not going to have it, or I really do want it, and I am going to have it. But at that point, it's a conscious decision, and then they have to decide, does it work toward their goal or not?
It's all about choice at that point. That's wonderful. This show has been chock full of all sorts of great tips for anyone who's looking to lose weight. Is there, in our last minute, is there one very important thing or very critical thing you can think of that you could give advice to?
Let's see. Just a practical tip that I tell people, and I did not come up with this. I actually read it in an article. If you actually get a smaller plate, and even though the rest of your family may have the regular plates, if you actually filled your smaller plate, your mind sees it as full, yet statistics show that you will actually eat 23% less food, and so less calorie consumption. And the other thing that I tell people, whether they're going out to eat or any meal, if you drink 1 to 2 tall glasses of water 20 to 30 minutes before your meal, it will actually start to fill up your stomach, because it takes roughly 20 minutes for the message that your stomach is full to actually register upstairs.
Oh, that's great information, Chris. Now, Chris, if someone wanted to learn more about this and more about what you do, contact you, how would they do that?
They can actually call me directly.
Sure.
And my telephone number is 978-549-5278.
Okay.
And unfortunately, my website is not online right now. I'm actually revamping it, and I'm working with a school right now. Some students who really are, who struggle and have a challenge. I want them to develop my website so they feel good about themselves.
Isn't that nice? That is so wonderful.
So
but if they want to get a hold of you, you can call the number that's on the screen right now.
And if not, you can Google me. Some classes that I do are at the Massachusetts Regional Vocational High School in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, or montytech.net.
Oh, awesome.